Hey trackers, Bear Tracker Nature Films out here in the Northwestern California woods looking at a redwood tree, and it's a very dry fall season right now, and everything here on the forest floor is just crackling. Not very quiet in here, but what's interesting is this redwood tree has a whole bunch of animal sign at the base of it. Now you're looking at this and you're saying, what? I don't see anything there. So in this environment, it's kind of tough to see these, and that's why we often don't find them here, because they camouflage very well. And this is an owl pellet. So here's one, and you can see bits of bone in there, and this is the fur from the prey. And then I see about 4 or 5, maybe 6 of them in here. Here's another one. Oops. Notice how it's kind of round. Now, owl pellets are not poop. These are pellets that are coughed out by the owl with the undigestible parts of their prey. So all this is fur, and if you break this apart, there's probably bones in there. Here's another one. Right here. This ruler will give you the size, a little less than 2 inches. So notice that the pellet is pretty lightweight, and here's a bone right there, but it's very lightweight. There's just a bunch of fur and bones in it. Same with this one right here. Very small. They're not really big old things that all cough up. Here's a couple of them. Here's an older one, kind of breaking down, and you can see the bones in it. That one could have been here for a long time. Here's another one that I need to dig out of the duff so you can see it. That one's pretty big. That's over 2 inches. That's 2.5. But again, lightweight, just composed of fur. So this whole base of this tree is full of these things, and I just got hung up on a branch here. Here's another one right here. Very light. They're dry, obviously because of the weather, but also because these are not a thing that comes out of the rear end. This is something that comes out of their mouth. So they cough these out because they can't digest a lot of the bones that they take in their prey. So they're composed of all the parts that an owl cannot digest. Now, other species make these as well. So herons and egrets make pellets as well as gulls. Most species of owls, there's hawks make them, eagles make them. So there's quite a few species around that will make pellets. In this case, this is kind of a neat find because out here, it's hard to see these things. There, as you can see, if you're just looking at this right now, where are the pellets we just looked at? So right here is one. Right there by the stick is one. Right down here. But they have great camouflage, and the reason for that is because these are composed of the fur of the prey, and those prey animals live out here in this forest. This is their home, and they need the camouflage to hide them from predators such as owls, and obviously it doesn't always work because the owls do catch them. But if you are interested in doing a science project, it's kind of a cool project. You take these and you bring them home and soak them in water, and that'll loosen up the fur. And then you can pull them apart, use some tweezers or something, and wear gloves, pull them apart, and you can see what's in them. And oftentimes you can identify the prey animals to species because you can find their skulls and all the bones, because what happens is the owls swallow their prey whole. So some animals, like hawks and ospreys, they'll rip their prey apart and consume it in pieces. But an owl, it tends to swallow mice and voles and things whole. So when the owl coughs up a pellet, you'll get the entire skeleton of that prey animal within the pellet. So each pellet is probably one prey animal, maybe more. But look right here, you can see a lower mandible. And if you take this and you look at it really closely, you can identify this animal to species. Here's the skull right here. I'll try and clean this up a little bit so you can see it. Just a second. Okay, so now you're looking up close at that skull, and note the shape of those teeth. They look like a series of little attached triangles. And over here is the mandible with the same sort of teeth. This is the skull of a vole. And you can key these out. You can identify them by taking measurements and looking at the features, like the features of the teeth, these auditory bullae here, this, whoops, come on, camera doesn't like to focus, whether or not there's a space between the incisors and the first cheek teeth, which are the rows, and the incisors are these yellow ones here. So all those features will help you to identify the skull. And so owl pellets are really interesting science projects because it helps you to learn not only what prey species are in the area, but also what the owls are eating. So, you know, you might not know that you have a bunch of voles or gophers, and if you find owl pellets and pull them apart, you'll see those in their pellets and realize that that's a prey animal, and then you can go look around and try to find where those prey animals are living. So it's useful for trackers, it's useful for scientists, and it's really just a fun project to do with a classroom. So if you're interested in doing that, again, just take them home, soak them in water, pull them apart, separate out the bones, and there's lots of resources online where you can look these up and see what kind of bones you found. It's really fascinating to learn about the animals that live around you. So the owl is probably up there roosting right now. They sleep during the day in a tree. Sometimes they'll use a hollow in a tree. Oftentimes they'll just sleep on a branch. And then they hunt at night. So examining their pellets can tell you about the nocturnal animals in your area, because owls eat the nocturnal rodents that live here in this forest. So in the case of this location here, what I'm interested in is learning whether or not the owls are preying on our tree vole species here, which is called the Sonoma tree vole. You may have seen a previous video that I did talking about what their signs look like when a nest has been raided and when pieces of the nest fall. So I might collect a couple of these pellets and pull them apart to see if I can find any tree vole skulls in them, because I'm interested in whether or not the owls have been consuming those guys. Because they live in the tops of the trees, and that little clump right there is similar to what their nests look like, although it's probably not an actual nest. Their nests are found up in mostly Douglas fir trees, sometimes in redwoods, but they spend their entire life up in the trees. So I'm interested in whether or not the owls are feeding on those. And so I will bring a couple of these pellets home and pull them apart, see what's in them. So hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about owl pellets, and have fun with your science experiments.